Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Canes on Deck, the last regular season Canes on Deck episode. And, made the call to the bullpen, went for the righty. Melissa, thanks for joining me. It is Jazz's birthday, so he is out celebrating. And, sometimes we get lucky and Melissa is not working, and then she can join me on the show. And sometimes we don't get lucky. It's me monologuing to camera while CCH yells in the chat. So we are very lucky tonight. I'm
pulling the Vish this week. Popped into the football show. Gonna do baseball. We got buckets on Wednesday.
You're doing Formula One tomorrow too?
I'm working tomorrow, so.
Otherwise.
Only the Canes sports anyway. I can manage talking Canes baseball because I follow it. I do not follow Formula One at all. So.
Well, you could join the Ferrari strategy team then. But that is a joke you won't understand. But if you watched F1, you'd be laughing. All right.
We did make the college World Series my senior year. Yes. I could hear it from the University Village when we clinched because I was watching it on TV, but I heard the cheers 10 seconds ahead of the TV broadcast.
You couldn't walk over to the light? Was it studying for finals crap? Anyway,
nursing school is a joke.
Anyway, so the show had been very positive the last few weeks. Hadn't lost game. Lost the one game to FIU, and other than that, everything was wins on top of wins. And then things kind of went up. Yeah, the other shoe dropped or regressed to the mean, whatever you want to call it, but swept by Virginia. The first game wasn't really competitive. The second one, the Canes imploded multiple times. We're going to talk about that one, I think, a lot. Sunday's game fell behind big, made a rally late, but came up short. I would say the story of the weekend, Melissa, it was the pitching had been so good over the last month, completely collapsed. I guess we'll start with the starters. So as we all know, kind of in the middle of the season.
I'm just going to say real quick, if you would have told me before the series started that Renzo Gonzalez would hit a grand slam, I would have told you we won at least one game.
Yeah, no, and Renzo hit a grand slam. We lost. It was amazing. Yeah, didn't pitch at all this past weekend. Yeah, we're going to go into a little bit of depth in the pitching. So obviously, I think everyone's aware in the middle of the season kind of switched the rotation up. And Hugh gets moved to Friday, Siskar to Saturday, and Darius to Sunday. This is the first week that they all just struggled badly.
Everybody, even Walters.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about the bullpen a little bit, but overall, the starters. Now, Hugus is obviously more of a veteran. He was at Cincinnati before this. He's a senior. He's pitched a lot. Kind of hope/expect him to bounce back. For these freshmen, this is kind of the first time they've been tagged like this. So do you have any concerns over? Obviously, I can't imagine there's any kind of change to the starting rotation. But any concerns with kind of how they come through on the other side of this?
No, I think they'll be fine. I mean, obviously they've exceeded any type of expectation anybody had for them. The fact that both of them, Siskar and Darius, have been pitching so well. I think if it's gonna happen and you're gonna have this type of weekend, it's better for it to happen now than for us to go to the ACC tournament and be terrible. So let this hopefully be the wake up call. I was kind of just over the last month watching us win game after game. I was just like, what is going on? And you kind of see that in all sports. There's always that one game where it's just this isn't the team I've been watching for however long. So hopefully this is kind of like that wake up call and we can get back to what Canes baseball's been the last month. which has
Yeah,
been freaking good.
yeah. I think to me I mean, obviously the starting pitching is a concern. After last weekend, especially when you have young pitchers, two of them are true freshmen. You know, how are they gonna respond now next week? Of course, being at home is helps a lot just because they're comfortable there. But the bullpen really, especially in game two, just completely fell. I mean, that game should have been, like you mentioned, Renzo had a grand slam. It was 7-3 and then 8-4 late
That
into the
was the
game.
game Walters came in and pitched
Yeah, Walters
out
came in
in
the
seventh, right?
yeah, he tried to do a 7-out save and it didn't happen. But he was off from the beginning. He struggled right when he came in. He survived the eighth inning thanks to Mikey Torres making that ridiculous catch. And then the ninth inning he did not survive, but he struggled. But before him, it was 8-4. It got competitive because Giroux and Carson Fisher got hit, and those are also guys that
We've been depending on.
Canes have been depending on. Will Smith came in on Friday, I believe, and he's another guy that Canes have been depending on. He got hit pretty well. This has always been a bit of a makeshift bullpen where they've kind of gone through different arms. How concerned are you going into, again, a month, like you said, a month ago, going into the postseason, which is actually a concern now because we're actually going to play in the postseason. Going into the postseason, how concerned are you about, like, those were the, JJ kind of settled on those arms consistently. Those arms got rocked this weekend pretty repeatedly.
I'm most definitely concerned about that, especially with how the tournament makeup is. I had mentioned it. I don't know if I said it to you. That our last midweek game that Reese pitched well, and I was really happy about that because that fourth pitcher is really important in the tournament because you're playing so many games, especially if you lose one, you end up having to play more, and you need that arm. You rely a lot on your bullpen in these things because you're all these games in a row. So our bullpen, especially Walters too, kind of getting hit like that is definitely a concern. And also we've kind of like Giroux, Fisher, we've kind of like in different spots. It's been spotty where one of them's been good for a little bit, and then they've gotten hit, and then another one's been good, and so there hasn't been a ton of consistency. So that's definitely a concern because of just how the tournament makeup is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I'm hoping we definitely need more of our starters, but Darius and Siskar never go that deep into games. Like they're really 5 maybe into the 6, so you're gonna need that bullpen. And I am concerned a little bit with the over management here. Like I don't know how you go to Walters for that many. Now look, he struggled from the first pitch, so it wasn't a situation where like we tried to use him for too many innings and like he ran out of steam. And keep in mind he was a starter at the beginning of the year, so he can obviously throw 2 1/3 innings. But we were basically at that point. We lost the first game, obviously the second game. You're basically going all in on game 2 to even the series up, and then question mark for Sunday. Like that's not exactly I don't know.
I just don't know how you like. It's one thing in the regular season, but to put your closer in for over 2 innings, that takes him away from the next game.
Yeah, I mean that's it for the weekend if he's going to pitch that much. And I don't know what the plan was there, and obviously it didn't work, so it makes it worse. Obviously, we just struck out 7 guys in a row. I mean, like great move, secured the win, avoided the sweep. Now let's see if we can win the series on Sunday, right? But the fact that it didn't work and you're coming out of that game having blown the lead.
It was the first time in a bit in a few series in a row where I was like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, I think part of it, as you mentioned earlier, the other shoe dropping, like that Boston College series. I mean, won one game on that Cuvée homer that hooked her on the pole. That was all the runs the Canes scored that game. The first game of that series, if you recall, both hits until Cuvée doubled, and then in the 8th were bunt singles. That was the only ball that left the infield for a hit the whole game. Won that somehow. So you keep, you win those. These are the other side. The other side was Saturday's game, where you score all these runs and then the pitching doesn't hold up. And
Renzo had a grand slam.
And you lose anyway. And that's just the flip side of that. Like you said, it's baseball, right? Yeah. Eventually, like it bounces the other way. So, it's almost like getting paid back for the BC series, which really probably should have lost that series and got a sweep instead. This past weekend, at worst, you should have won a game and got swept. So that stuff tends to balance out a little bit. I'm just more worried about one mentally because again, we're not going to shuffle the lineup. You mentioned Reese. He's a guy that we're probably going to need to start at some point in a regional. But that doesn't help the bullpen. And several of these arms that he went to have gotten hit a little bit the last few weeks. Walters had not until Saturday.
Cleveland pitched well in that third game.
Cleveland pitched well twice because he came in on Friday as well. Robbie Evans came in on Friday and gave us 2/3 of an inning. He hadn't basically pitched all season, then came in last week, and I think JD's looking for a left-handed option out of the bullpen, and that's why he settled on Robbie Evans. That's the second time he's pitched well. So maybe, but I think he's more of a situational lefty is probably what we're looking at for him. But yeah, I'm going to take off my biased hat a little bit. But Jackson looked like our best reliever out of the bullpen this week. He steadied that Sunday game when it was getting away from us, and we almost rallied and won. And he was good on Friday. But again, on Friday the game was over when it was 6-1, and eating.
Yeah, but and like that's not a thing you want to be like having to guess come tournament. It's like, all right, which one of my bullpen pitchers is going to be on? Like, that's not.
But I do wonder. We talked about there. We did talk about them. Like, there's no way they're going to shuffle the starters. I do wonder if we see maybe Jackson or Robbie Evans getting more action versus Giroux, Will Smith, or Carson Fisher.
You don't see a shuffle with Walters either.
No, Walters I think will continue to close. It's too late to switch that for a third time.
And I don't think it's the first time he's really been.
Yeah, no, he's fine. But some of these, like I said, he's the exception to that. Some of these other players that got hit have been kind of shaky the last few weeks and gotten away with it, either pitching at jams or giving up some runs, but not enough to lose the game.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if we see maybe more Robbie Evans or Jackson Cleveland in a little bit more of those high leverage spots versus they've been kind of called in non-competitive situations lately, and the guys we've been going to aren't necessarily performing. So we'll see. Huh?
Is that you buzzing?
Yeah, that is work. Anyway, which I'll have to take care of after this, but fun times. Yeah, so that's the pitching. Now the hitting, obviously, Saturday's game, they certainly did more than 9 runs, should win you any baseball game. So, but one thing we've been tracking on this show is the dependency on Daniel Cuvée, and I think that kind of came to a head this weekend because even though he was delivering, it just wasn't enough, and the lack of productivity out of large parts of the lineup.
Cuvée for sure. I think the top of the lineup has been delivering better. I think Galvin and Ogden have been doing pretty well, and Dorian as well. I think there's been a lot of shuffling at the bottom of the lineup, especially at DH. So there's not a lot of consistency there. But
yeah, I mean, there's been Evan Taveras and Bobby Marsh have been kind of platooning at DH, depending on if the pitcher's a righty or a lefty. But yeah, we haven't been getting a lot of productivity at the plate out of Mikey Torres. Fabio Peralta got benched on Sunday in favor of Gabby Gutierrez, so he's trying something else there. Tanner Smith has been pretty solid, but Renzo, we joked that he did hit a grand slam, but that's obviously abnormal. It's not like something like, well, now we got a power hitter there. That was just that was something. I'll tell you that.
Nice for the season.
Yeah, no, I mean that was more. That is an accurate stat. He had 3 RBI and 4 on that one swing, and that's it for this year so far. So yeah, there's just a lot of lack of people you think you can rely on. And again, Renzo delivered on Saturday and lost anyway, so it's not that they're never delivering, but it is kind of easy to pitch around our team when there's you're really as you mentioned, much of the first 4 guys are the ones you're really concerned with, and that's kind of like I'll live with whatever the rest do. And I don't know if there's a solution. He's tried differently. It's not, if he wasn't trying other guys, he's tried them. He's rotated everyone, and Marsh has really struggled after we entered conference play. He has not hit well at all since then. So I get,
There hasn't been consistency at the DH though, so I don't even know how you even.
He was the DH for most of the season, and he was so
non-conference. Yeah.
Well, his numbers are kind of so out of whack because he was top 10 in batting average in the country entering conference play, and it's dropped into the low 200s now. So I mean, he's basically not delivering at all. So that's why I think against lefties they're like, well, let's try a righty. But then Derek Williams' injury obviously hurts a lot. We don't know if he's coming back. We keep hearing he was going to, but now we're out of runway here. And he would be he was Kane's second best hitter at the time he got injured. Obviously, since then, Galvin's been hitting a lot better. Ogden's been hitting a lot better. Dorian's come around. So now you throw him in the mix, though, that just elevates you. And I think there's a no-brainer. He's the DH if he comes back because we're not going to, take gloves out of the outfield. But
I do got to say, though, Peralta and Torres made some really nice plays in the outfield.
Yeah, they're excellent defensively, which is why I think, although Peralta did get benched on Sunday, which kind of surprised me.
He had that really nice diving catch, and then Torres showed him up with that home run robbery. But they've been making some great plays in the outfield.
They cover a lot of field. They both have good arms. So, but if you're going to start Gabby, then obviously you would consider starting Williams. But I do think he would definitely slot in either the DH or into the outfield. But that still doesn't solve the problem of It helps a lot, but it's not going to solve that. There's just some bats that pitchers aren't afraid to go after, and it puts a lot of pressure on the top of the line to knock all the runs in. I mean, we saw it in
on the bright side, at least the guys around Cuvée have been picking it up too, because it's forcing pitchers to pitch to Cuvée, and look what he's done in the last month.
I mean, I still think they're idiots to throw to him. Like that Sunday game, we had 6 RBI. He had 4 of them. Like, all he had to do was not throw to him. But, I mean, that was actually a good illustration, right? Because we actually were following into that game together and cut it to 8-6. Or what was it? 8-6, right? Yeah, 8-6. And bases were, loaded? Or runners at the corners and no outs. And after Cuvée knocked in
and it was strikeout.
The pitch run, 2 strikeouts and a fly out, and the game's over. And that's the type of stuff like they got through, even Cuvée getting a single – because he didn't hit a homer and knock all the runs in, that was game over. And that's, frankly, like we mentioned that Boston College series. I mean, he had all the RBIs in 2 of the 3 wins, all of them. So when the pitching does not keep the other team to 2 or 3 runs, it's not enough runs in.
And JD tried because he pinch hit. I think Kulikowski had that.
He pinch hit with Kulikowski, and then he pinch hit with Nick Johnson. It's kind of okay.
Pinch ran Cuvée, which
the pitch run at Cuvée really didn't make any sense. He put Peralta in, who's obviously faster.
I don't see how you take Cuvée out ever.
Well, especially the position that he's pinch running for is the tying run, and so by doing that, you're saying, oh, this guy can come around and score. Then you're in an 8-8 game, and you don't have your best hitter. So I don't know what the plan was there. Especially for that to happen, then he didn't try steal, because I'm like, well, then you definitely got to try and steal second.
Yep.
Because keep in mind, Cuvé's not slow.
No.
So Peralta's is faster, because Peralta's one of the fastest players on the team. But if you're gonna make that move just to have him sit on first base,
like it's a winning run.
So that didn't really make any sense. Like, first of all, just never take Cuvée out of the game. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know if you're going to need it. So just never take him out of the game. That's the one player you cannot sub for any reason. Cuvée must play every inning of every game, period.
I feel like I don't ever take Ogden out either, but I might be biased.
No, Ogden's fantastic. I don't think you should take him out either, but Cuvée is the one that you absolutely, under no circumstances, can take this one.
Vish knows Ogden's my favorite player.
Yes, because he wears number 4.
And he plays short. That's my position.
And because he wears number 4.
2 for 2 right there. Short.
But Cuvé's on a different level nationally. He's probably, a top 5 player in the country. And there's no point where you take him out and risk having a situation where you need him and he's no longer in the game. Exactly. Especially on a team like this where they're overly reliant on him. So I guess,
I think I said that to you. I think because we were following it on the thing, and I was like, did they just pinch run for Cuvée?
And again, what was the payoff there? It was a bizarre decision, but that whole
it's
that
not.
back half of that inning between going to Kulakowski, who basically has not played this year, going to Nick Johnson, who also basically has not played this year, and pinch running for Cuvée in sequences. Those are three decisions that really don't make a lot of sense. As far as I know, Bobby Marsh hadn't played yet. If you're going to pull Tavares for a lefty, I mean, I don't know how Kulakowski ends
The
up
whole
there.
lefty righty switch thing makes no sense to me when you're going to someone who's barely gotten at bats that year. Like,
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's my
advantage.
point. If you wanted to do that, you had Marsh there, and
Yeah.
then I don't know where he found Nick Johnson. As he traveled with the team, but that was another one where it's like this is someone that has not played at all either. Now he likes to pitch it with Gabby in that spot, but he started Gabby, so he couldn't, and maybe that was why. Because then remember he burned Peralta as a pitch runner, so he was kind of he was running low on people to pinch hit with. But I believe was Nick Johnson pinch hit for Renzo, right? Like fresh off his grand slam, he pitch hit for him. So
I forget the order.
I'm pretty sure it was Renzo because Tanner Smith was batting seventh, which also didn't make sense. But
I think Gabby was batting fifth or something, right? Who was
fifth was Kulakowski pinch hit for Tavares.
Yeah.
I thought sixth was Nick Johnson pinch hit for.
I didn't get moving Tanner Smith down the lineup.
I mean, there was a lot of curious decisions that obviously 2020 hindsight, you're like, I guess the bigger question, this is the concern going forward, right? I don't know what he was thinking. I don't think Cuvée being subbed out of games is something I'm worried about long term as an issue. So, like, putting that to one side, kind of transit. Well, we'll talk about this in a minute. I guess first we could talk about what this did to the Canes. We'll talk about Notre Dame, maybe how they approach that. But so, as we mentioned last week, the Canes were fifth in the ACC, a half game out of getting that double bye. After getting swept, that is no longer the case. They're now down to eighth, which means that is the last seed with the bye in the tournament. They're half game up on Louisville and Wake, and a half game behind Clemson. Remember the Canes, because that rain out against NC State, are going to play one less game. Virginia and Florida State.
Because we would have won.
Well, we were up 2-0, and based on what we saw, let's not. 8-4 late in the game was not done, so it's just but because and Virginia obviously had that Florida State series canceled, so they're going to play significantly less games. They're 14-10 now. So really realistically, right now, if they can't sweep Notre Dame, they'll get the bye. But if they drop a game with Louisville and Wake Forest right behind them, it's not going to end up in a tie unless someone gets a rain out. So you don't have to worry about tiebreakers, but it's a half game situation now. So that's to avoid getting only getting one bye or no buys. That's where they're sitting at now. The double bye is the
series is important.
Even with the sweep, the double bye is not going to happen now. The way that last weekend played out. So yeah, the Canes are a half game behind Clemson for seventh, and a half game up on Louisville and Wake for eighth. And while they lost to Wake and wouldn't have the tiebreaker, again, moot point, because they're not going to end up tied. They're playing a different number of games. So that's where it left them. Fortunately, the RPI did not take too big of a hit. They're still 28th in the RPI thanks to that number 6 strength of schedule in the country that the Canes have played. It turns out, after Connecticut came into the light with 2 wins and beat the Canes, they went and killed a bunch of other teams, and it's actually a quality opponent now. So Canes kind of right there, but 6 overall strength of schedules, keeping that RPI nice and high. So certainly no risk to missing the tournament at this point. If we get swept again, we're gonna have to have some conversations. 14 and 16 or whatever or 14 and I guess it would be 14 and 15 because they play the one less game in conference, won't get it done. But the other kind of indicator here is D1 baseball does their write-ups of like winners and losers from the last weekend. We did not make the losers category, which is good because that's when that's where they highlight teams that destroyed their postseason chances, like Texas A&M getting swept at home by a crappy Missouri team. So Canes didn't make that. UVA did make help them. So the move up. So I would expect, and those projections usually come out tomorrow, the Canes to probably be in that 2-3 seed line again, but firmly in. That's a lock, which basically means don't do anything completely stupid, which getting swept by Notre Dame this week would be. Now, speaking of Notre Dame, I guess first question I'm going to throw your way, Melissa, is so we talked a little bit about the pitchers. So kind of two parts to a question. You can answer however you want. But do you think JD is going to do anything with the bullpen, like in terms of who he goes to and when? And if you were him, would you?
I mean, I think we need to see who we can. I mean, you're not. I don't think necessarily you're going to get that from one series, but I think you need to figure out where everybody is right now, because sometimes baseball can be a game of slumps. You need to know who you can depend on. I think the three starters are set. I don't see us. I don't know that there would be anybody you could switch to. I think that the way Hughes, Darius, and Siskar have pitched, through the month of April, they've proven that they can help us win games. Walters is the closer. That's not going to change. But you got Fisher, you've got Cleveland, you've got who else? Lumpkin technically is our fourth starter. You could use him a little bit, see where he's at. Trying to who else? I'm missing somebody.
There's
Smith.
Giroux, there's Carson
Smith.
Fisher, Will Smith,
Yeah.
or guys
Yeah.
that he goes to.
So I'd be interested to. I would like to see all of them, honestly. Not that because we need to use them, but just to see where everyone's at, because everyone had a rough weekend of pitching, in my opinion. But I would like to see it in a less nerve-wracking role where we bring them in because we're up like 10, and we're just like, all right, let's get the mercy rule, something like that. But
yeah, and
I'd like to see all of them.
yeah, and I guess from my perspective, I do kind of think that planning to use them for shorter stints, he tends to go to Fisher and ask him to eat a ton of innings, and same thing with Giroux, and doesn't really have a plan B for when they're struggling. And I'd say they, and this applies to probably Will Smith a little bit as well, are very like when they got it, they got it. When they don't, they don't. And I would at least prepare to have Jackson Cleveland and Robbie Evans ready to come in and maybe use all of these guys for a little bit shorter stints instead of, let's get to the fifth inning and then Carson Fisher for 2 or 3, and then maybe Giroux here and there and Will Smith here and there to get to Walters. And I would try to shorten that up a little bit and be prepared to quickly, bring someone else in if someone is struggling, because we've definitely seen so many inconsistencies like that. That game on Saturday, we should have never gotten to the point where we're like, crap, we need to use Walters for 7 outs here. And we did kind of stick with the guys that have done well. So I kind of get that. Like Giroux and Carson Fisher are the two guys that primarily handle the bullpen that game. And they're pitchers that we've gotten a lot of. Like those wins the last month don't happen without those two guys. So
no, and they've had some great games where they've pitched like 2-3
yeah,
innings.
but I just think you got to mentally understand that, none of these guys, this includes Walters, but he's certainly the best we've got at closer, and I do expect him to bounce back fine and be fine next week. But other than that, he's what you want in closers, throwing upper 90s, and I think when you overuse guys, they tend to fade a little bit, and so hopefully that was a lesson for JD not to be like, hey, warm up in the 7th and go in there. But I do think having a quicker hook with some of the other guys that have been up and down. Like, hey, if it looks like they don't got it, just pull them. For 2 reasons. One, again, they've been inconsistent. But 2, that way you have them for the next game. So, if just I'm just picking a name out of a hat. But if Carson Fisher comes in, struggles a little bit, 1 or 2 batters, get him out of there. Let him reset. You can use him again tomorrow. If you leave him out there and he throws like 40 pitches and gets rocked, then you've not only hurt yourself in this game, but you also can't bring him back in the rest of the weekend. So, to me, that would make more sense, but I honestly...
I'd like to see our starters go a good 5 innings.
Yeah, the problem that they have is none of them, they all seem to struggle, and I think Siskar probably a little bit less with this, but I've noticed that all 3 of them, this includes Hughes, like the out pitch, they tend to get in these long counts with 2 strikes. The guys are able to foul a lot of balls up. They throw a lot of pitches.
Yeah.
And by the time they get to the 5th inning, they're up in the 60, 70 pitch range. There's not much more you're going to do with them. And so, so part of it's also just getting quicker outs and, getting into the dugout without throwing as many pitches, because they've definitely eaten a lot of pitches in early innings. And then, you already know by the third inning, like this guy's not going to get into the seventh and eighth inning with the amount that he's been had to throw already. So that's just part of it is what it is, right? We got a couple of freshmen. We got Hugus, who, has grown into that Friday night role, but it's still a big ask. And I don't know that any of them are ever, really the inning eater types. So we're going to need the bullpen. We do have a lot of options there, and I guess that's my
Inning
point.
eater types yet. I mean, 2 of them are freshmen.
Yeah, I don't know if they necessarily have the stuff to. I don't know. We'll see. It's different types of pitchers that are.
Yeah.
Their style might not lend itself to.
I know. I'm not like a pitching expert. I'm more of a baseball fan. But Siskar slider, I think it is.
He's got a good slider, a changeup, and his fastball
because he's still trying to control it against lefties. I think as he gets that maybe more under control, that could be that pitch that causes a strikeout. Maybe that helps him. But
yeah, but even like part of the way you go later into games, though, and also because JD absolutely will not, and this is a good thing, but will not burn their arm out. Like you'll see some high leverage situations in college where like they'll leave the dude in for like 110, 120 pitches. JD will never do that. He's not going to ruin the kid's career. So actually strikeout pitchers tend to throw a lot of pitches because you got to get to the strikeout. So the ones that pitch to contact, keep the ball in play, ground ball, they tend to go longer in the games because they can throw 1 or 2 pitches and get them out. If you're striking someone else out, you throw at least 3. And usually a lot more than that. So that's not necessarily, I don't know. That's a next year problem. Right now, none of these guys are going to go past. I don't think we should expect anyone to go past the 5th inning, 6th maybe if we're lucky. So that, of course, for a weekend.
If we can get a good 5 innings.
I mean, we generally have done that. That's how they get wins. We've generally been okay doing that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, earlier in the year, and this surfaced again on Friday, giving up a bunch of runs in the first inning. Putting you behind the 8 ball is not good. We did that on Friday and to a lesser extent on Sunday. So that night, in fact, we fell behind Saturday too. If we recall, the game was 3-1 before we rallied and Renzo hit the grand slam, and all of that was after we'd gotten back in the game. But yeah, we'll see. I would like to see again just more pitchers pitching generally.
Yeah.
And expanding out the options for the postseason versus continuing to constrict.
Because you need it. The postseason, there's so many games in a row. You need. That's why I mentioned Reese earlier, because if you lose a game and then you have to, play that extra game, you might need him.
Yeah, but I don't know that I would pitch Reese at any point out of the bullpen. Like he's not going to. That's not
to start. If you don't have an arm.
Yeah, no, but that's why I don't think we're going to see him again until regionals, if at all, because even if we go even the ACC tournament, I think if we get the 1 bye, I gotta look at the format. We might still have to play 4 games.
Let's move on to.
Well, let's show our guy Parrish first, but then let's talk about
that's not Jazz. I'm like, nope, I am not Jazz.
All right, well. You talked earlier about the lineup. You said you want some consistency. So what would you do at DH?
I'm a fan of Bobby Marsh, but I would just like to see some consistency. They keep it's somebody different all the time. But go with the hot bat. I don't know.
Well, that assumes facts, not in evidence. So, I mean, if we had an option there, I think he would. To his credit, he hasn't stopped trying to find a solution there.
Yeah.
To his deficit, he also has not allowed anyone to settle into that position. So I don't have a good answer.
There's pros and cons. I'd say just stick with one and let them get some at bats and for lack of a better term, build momentum. I don't know.
Yeah, I would probably just go back to March at this point. He's out of the options. He's done the best overall, but I mean,
I feel like I haven't seen a lot of them, but I feel like he's maybe the better power hitter, like contact wise, when he's making contact.
Yeah, I mean, it's so. I mean,
Yeah.
we need Derek Williams back was the actual answer. So, all right, real quick, we'll talk ND and then we'll get out of here. So, and Notre Dame comes in this game. They won 5 in a row, 8 out of their last 9 ACC games. They swept Stanford and Cal, then won 2 or 3 from Louisville. I believe they played Bowling Green last week because they're kind of non-conference. Best series one was probably over Louisville. They don't really have a bad loss. They have lost to FSU, Wake, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and BC, but none of those are really bad. Playing a midweek game against Eastern Michigan, which is odd for them to try and squeeze that in on a short week. But they are hot coming in. So Melissa, I guess my overall question, I'm not going to pretend like you're an expert on Notre Dame, neither am I. But just is there any? All right, so we're coming off again swept. They've been hot. They've won 5 in a row. They've been hot even before that in the ACC. 8 out of the last 9 ACC games. I would say on paper, you definitely expect us to win this series, right? We're the better team. We're at home. We've been really good at home this year. How concerned are you that Notre Dame's like coming in hot, riding a hot streak, and corollary to that too? Like, are you concerned at all that we're gonna have a hangover now that we've started losing games again, we will struggle to get out of the slide?
I mean, I'm definitely concerned about that they're hot. I think we need to. I think that Thursday night game, I think we need to start off and go at them quickly and get some runs. I'd love it. Just start off the game with the Cuvée 3-run home run. Ogden and Galvin get on base. I think just take their soul early. And hopefully Hughes is back on his game. I think winning that first game will set the huge tone for the series, and I would be even more concerned if we come out sluggish and Notre Dame jumps on us early, because they've already got momentum going and we don't. So you let them establish that early. I feel like it could be a really bad weekend.
Yeah, that's a good point. It might be as simple as like the number of times we've come out to bat to start the game and already been down.
Yeah.
At home, because bottom half of the first inning already trailing. Like getting through the first inning, good start from Hughes. Obviously, we talked earlier. It's not great that a lot of our production comes from the top of the lineup, but it does. So if you can get out of that first inning without letting it run, and then get something going offensively, that'll erase a lot of the bad feelings.
Yeah, you just got to build the momentum early, because Notre Dame's coming in hot. And we have a lot riding on this, and I'm sure and the guys know it too. So, and got that home field. So hopefully, just build on what you did in April, kind of try to push back into the back of your mind what happened last weekend and roll with it. Hopefully fans come out to the light and support.
Yep. It's Thursday to Saturday. Yep. It is the last so barring a fluky regional situation where we win our regional and there's an upset in the other
last weekend to get milkshakes
half, and we somehow host a super regional, which is technically possible but implausible, I would say. These will be the last 3 home games of the year, so definitely head out to the light. That is Thursday to Saturday. Before we end with our normal thing, which is trying to guess what milkshake they're going to serve this weekend in honor of Notre Dame. Melissa, why don't you tell people where they can get that sporty-looking hoodie you're wearing?
Oh, we're promoting the hoodies? I love it. I didn't even have to suggest it. Yes, aboutthefans.com. Use code HG10. You can get 10% off. Just search Hoodie Girl. I have a hoodie collection. It's 4 hoodies. This is my logo hoodie. There's a Hoops dedicated one as well. So if you're into hoodies,
yep.
Doesn't matter.
Aboutthefans.com, search Hoodie Girl collection. There's 4 hoodies, and if you enter the code HG10, you will get 10%. So make sure to do that. Check out. All right. Parrish has faith. I think we do too. I expect us to win this series. So, and that'll solidify us in the tournament and probably solidify us in the preseason.
So they better win on Saturday.
I mean, it's the last home game. You definitely want to walk out there. I mean, I will say this was last week. The last home series was us needing to win a game to make sure we made the ACC tournament. So this is a lot better situation. So that's a little gap. Let's end on that positive note and pivot to milkshake time. So it is Notre Dame. We know that they like to do the themed milkshake.
Yep.
relative to the road team, except when they cheated and did pimento during Duke week. But what do you think they'll have in store for the Fighting Irish on this weekend?
I mean, we kind of discussed this. We were joking that it might be Lucky Charms because
You
of the
stole
whole
my
Irish.
idea. That's okay. You're allowed to do that.
I mean, short of them like oh, let's make a holy water milkshake. I mean, I don't know what else you could relate to the Irish.
Holy water.
This is the whole Catholics thing, you know.
There's Catholics everywhere. That's what they do with Ireland. I mean, Ireland has a lot of Catholic people, but they're just.
Listen, Lucky Charms would definitely make sense.
I would say if they do a holy water thing or something, it would be probably more related to the first American.
And then what Parrish is saying too, I was something like mint because it's green.
Could be mint. Although I think if they want to go like something that they think might actually taste good, mint, Lucky Charms are on the table. If they want to go disgusting, I'm trying to think. They could do something with potatoes. Why are you scowling at me? Irish food. Do you not know anything about Irish food?
I do not.
Okay, so potatoes, and then
they
do a lot of mincemeat stuff like shepherd's pie. You could throw in there. That's a lot of effort, but if they want to deconstruct it and put like ground beef and like mashed potatoes on top of it,
it's Lucky Charms because he's usually the one that tries them.
No, I'm just saying if they're gonna do something disgusting, the Irish do have. Actually, I'm a fan of a lot of Irish food, but in a milkshake form, probably not. So they could do something like a shepherd's pie on top of it. They could do a fish and chips in there.
I hope it's Lucky Charms because honestly, Lucky Charms is one of my top 3 favorite cereals. So that would actually be really good.
Yeah. So
I probably have to get 2 milkshakes so I could get my usual banana and then.
Are you locking in Lucky Charms though? Is that your choice?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Jazz with the whole snickerdoodle thing was funny, but.
Oh, I nailed another one. I think it was the North Carolina State one. I had the barbecue pork. But we've been pretty good on it. Actually, I think there was another one they picked the same one. That's probably good. They just watching the show and picking what we said because there was a third one that. All right, so maybe you spoke Lucky Charms into existence. I'll go the savory route because I think they're gonna look. Lucky Charms is too nice to Notre Dame. All right, because that might actually taste good. Lucky Charms is a good cereal, and cereal in a milkshake actually kind of makes sense. So, look, we got to insult Notre Dame. We can't do that. So I'm thinking Irish food. We actually talked about this too. Nothing really in Indiana that's like stands out as like this is the cuisine. So I'm going Irish, and I will go fish and chips in there.
That would be interesting.
That would be something.
Fries in a milkshake is actually good, like dipping fries in a milkshake. But I don't know about.
I could see fish and chips being in there. Some blended fish up in the. No. Although you have to fry the fish, so the prep might be a pain in the ass. You can't like pre-fry. I guess
it's gonna be Lucky Charms. It makes the most sense.
Or they could throw ground beef and then call it shepherd's pie. So
that's disgusting.
I'll go with the ground beef. Let's do that, and you can go with the Lucky Charms. All right. Anyway, as we said, this is the last weekend of the series. So head out to Light Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then after that, we'll know the ACC tournament standings, which technically start on Tuesday. Right now, the Canes wouldn't start until Wednesday, but stay tuned for that as well. We got hit in the Apex tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We're going to preview Imola in San Marino. And Melissa, what do we got going on Wednesday?
Wednesday, should I promote can I promote the other network?
Yeah, well, there are people.
So Wednesday I'm doing a double hoops show. So I'll be on the Flow Network on 8:30. He's doing a hoop show. Matt might be joining from Buckets. We're not sure yet. And then at 9:30 we're doing Buckets. We've got one of the newer Canes women's basketball editions, Amarachi Kimpson, joining us, UNLV transfer. So come say hello. But yeah, double hoop show on Wednesday.
Yep. So recap tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Join me here in Evan and maybe Jazz for hitting the Apex at 8 o'clock. Wednesday, 8:30. Check out Melissa on the Miami Flow Network talking hoops. And 9:30, myself, Melissa, and our other co-host Matt will have Buckets. Amarachi Kimpson joins us. So a lot of content going on. Then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, head out to the Lights. You got something to do the rest of the week.
And happy birthday, Jazz.
yes, happy birthday, Jazz. Hope you're having a good one out there, and he'll be back with me next week to preview the ACC tournament. We're already there. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and go Canes.